You know where we are now? Southwark has one of the best educational schools. We've got 5 outstanding secondary schools. All our secondary schools are good. Our secondary school stack is one of the top 20 across the whole of London, competing with private schools itself. When I was in Southwark in education, you wanted to go to Lewisham and Lambeth to go to school. I remember I couldn't wait to get out of my secondary school to go to then Craster King in Lewisham to go to my secondary school. Most kids in Southwark then, you will want to go to, you got Abadasha in New Cross. You'd want to go to Craster King in Lewisham, or you want to go to SFX in Waslin. The best performing sixth form then was Bacon's College, and that was the only one. And even then, you will still want to go to Craster King or SFX, those that know the picture in itself. And most of sort of kids, the best of them were dispersed out itself, because actually, frankly, education failed our kids then. But now, people want to come into Southwark. People are busting into Southwark. And I say that with so much pride, because I'm not saying it's all down to my will, to my power, but I would say I say it as a testament of good leadership.
Tales unfold through voices strong, stories told, connections formed, we find our place.
Hello, welcome back to Echoes of Our Community. My name is Margaret Taribo, and I'm going to be your host today. Echoes of Our Community looks at different topics in our community, especially as it relates to our well-being, our development, our future, our passions. And we bring in different people to talk about real stories so that we can have real impact. So today I have somebody with us that he's going to be talking real. I mean, really real. And it's important because when we hear these stories, they bring out the best. They bring out the fact, actually, can I do this? And it's also to motivate, especially the younger generation, say, if he can do it, so can I. So today I just want you to welcome with me Councillor Michael Situ. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. I purposely didn't introduce you in depth, so because I wanted you to talk about yourself, introduce us. Let's start from there. Where did you come from? We might, where were you born here? What's your story? Can we? Yeah, so it'd be good to hear.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to join you here today. And I've seen your podcast, the impact it has in both kind of informing, impacting, and allowing people to shape their life. So as stated, I'm Councillor Michael Situ. I was born in Nigeria, very proudful of that itself. For me, I say that having the opportunity to be born in Nigeria, the community life, the discipline, the early education in which it provides, and then having the opportunity to come here later on to the UK when I was 12 years old, to make best of the educational opportunities that a kind of a study in UK provides, and obviously the job opportunities as well.
I'm going to stop you. When you said,
I felt very privileged.
You said about Nigeria. So you said you came when you were 12.
Yes.
How was it growing up in Nigeria at that time?
Yes. So I remember very early on in Nigeria. I would say, look, my mum and dad had come to the UK when in the 80s, and I remember then, or certainly my mother reminds me that when I was left, I was 5 months old.
Wow.
So very young. I didn't meet my mum really for the first time face to face till I was about 7 years old.
Wow.
But we did speak on the phone itself, but there obviously wasn't the close kind of motherly collection which would have been in existence in most kind of parental home itself. But I was thankful for my extended family who stepped onto the plate, for my sister and I who were in Nigeria there, my older sister and I. So particularly thankful of my grandmother, my mother's mother, who is no longer with us, bless her soul. All my uncles and aunties played an instrumental role itself. But as a young kid, when you don't have your parent around, I certainly say it's never the same. The kind of the kind of feeling which you would exhibit to your parents. You may always sometimes hold back to extended families around you. You never know sometimes how they will react.
True.
And even though in most situations they were very lovely and they were very supportive itself, but you never feel that you can express yourself in the same way as you would do to your parents. So that there was element of that growing up, and it's always the case as well that when you don't have your parents around, you tend to also spend time with different family members around. And it has its advantages, but it also has its disadvantages that you don't necessarily feel settled in that respect. And also to some extent, you also feel to some extent as to who is your direct point of contact to support and advice. Where, for example, if you have your parents, you always know that's where you go to the next. And in some respect, as I said, I'm eternally grateful to all the family members around me.
But you had to go from one to the other.
But there was the challenges then. But you know something? I say that in the midst of it all, I felt kind of supported. I cherish my upbringing in Nigeria. It was full of love for the little or much we had itself. And it was, in some respect, you don't know what you have until you see differently, and actually coming here and seeing the advantage of kind of being a young person here and the disadvantage of being a young person there. And you get to contrast both. So in Nigeria, I had the community life, the discipline. I had what I called extra love from neighbors, family, extended relatives, the community, in the way we say that actually everybody steps onto the plate when you're in either Nigeria or other parts of Africa or other parts of or other parts of the world in Asian countries as well. So I had that in abundance. I would say also I remember that the core subjects in Nigeria were taught at a faster pace than here.
Yes, I remember.
So I'd give you an example. So I did GSS1 in Nigeria, and in GSS1, you have large classes.
Yes.
And I remember in maths, I never got higher than the 72nd place itself within my GSS1 class. But when I jumped into year 8 here, I was like in the top class, in the top of the top class itself. But it shows you how kind of advanced the core subjects are in terms of maths, in English, terms of science and in terms of the things that perhaps doesn't require practical skills. But then also I remember that when I was in primary school and then onto secondary school, the IT classes I have was literally the book.
I remember that as well.
And everything else.
It didn't click with me as well.
But coming here straight away and getting to kind of go on the computer straight away, I learned faster in terms of the practical aspect of things. And that's what you get. And I remember even PE classes was much fun here than it was in Nigeria itself. And you can point to a lot of other things, which actually felt like a bit of an upgrade. So I would say in summary, my kind of childhood in Nigeria was full of memory, full of blessings. There's always challenges to all sort of experiences itself. And I would always say to people that regardless of what the reason you may have in wanting your child to experience kind of Nigeria, there is no substitute for giving them a dose of a different kind of way of living. And if you do originate from Nigeria, then it is the best place to start. So 1 or 2 years of your child's life, if you can make it work, it can make such a huge difference.
Councillor, I resonate with that because I, just like you, I was born here actually, then I went back to Nigeria. But I don't think anything can take away from my growing up in Nigeria because it actually helped with my identity as well. Absolutely. And I think, just like you're saying, if we can make it work, make it work. But I think you had an extra dose of blessing because some people say they send their children back and they don't have that extra love from relatives. And so I think you were just blessed, and we're just hoping that relatives will not be as, people have different stories to tell in terms of upbringing. But that aside, so now you've left Nigeria and you're here, and now tell me how that was growing up. What school?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. So I remember kind of stepping onto the shores of kind of UK. And I think when you're a young kind of boy in Nigeria, you see kind of the country, the kind of London, I didn't even know the term UK then, or even England for that fact. It's London you hear about. You think everything is paved in gold over there. You look up to kind of the display of wealth from those who come back to Nigeria, and you feel that kind of, yes, you've made it. You stepped down, you made it, and all your life, everything should be sorted. But the reality is that whilst there are a lot of opportunities here, there are also lots of challenges. And I remember, the more nuclear challenge I would say for myself is obviously my older sister and I, we came here, we found ourselves in our family of 7.
Wow.
So 5 children with mom and dad itself.
So
there are 3. So 3 younger kind of siblings who were born here.
Okay.
We were meeting them for the first time.
Wow.
So you can quite kind of imagine. I was 12 years old. I've got my oldest sister who was 13, 14 then, and you've got your 3 younger siblings, and you've got to relate with them, and you've got to do it. Or you don't have to do it, but it's expected that you do it within a cultural kind of environment itself. And credit to my younger ones because they adjusted. Because of course, as you grow up in Nigeria, you grow up in a class system of kind of you're the other one, you're the younger one, and
the respect must be there.
Respect must be there. But I must say, my younger siblings adjusted in that respect. But in any regards, there was a dynamism that had to be shaped pretty quickly within the family home itself, and I think not just amongst us, the children, but also from us as the 2 children that came from Nigeria to the parents as well, because of course we too had to kind of adjust to kind of getting used to actually having a mom and dad every single day.
Wow.
I think before then, I think my mom visited about kind of the totality of about 3 times, at least to my memory. And dad probably visited the totality of 2 times in itself. So that there was limited physical contact, and you in essence have to develop the love during that period of time. But we did well. We all adjusted, and I'm sure from their experience as well, they would say they've had to adjust.
Wow.
And I say that because of course, whether you go from London to Nigeria or you vice versa, there's an element of adjustment.
Yes.
And sometimes we don't appreciate it enough when we send our young kids to Nigeria that it's tough out there. They have to adjust pretty quickly to the new environment in which they find themselves. I think it's still a good idea, but we also need to find ways of helping
mental health. These are the things that affect us mentally, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, those are certainly issues.
Yeah.
But that aside, so you've got the home environment, you've got the wider community environment, which of course I've got to deal with as a young person. Making friends was tough, and not just making friends from the perspective of the kind of person I am. I was relatively more introvert, but also from the perspective of mom and dad didn't want you to bring any friends or do anything that was kind of what they found as inappropriate in itself, in terms of they had a very kind of strict discipline, and they felt, having seen the challenges of bringing up young children in and around the area in Southwark, that they needed to have strict when you need to come back home and what you need to do and what you need not to do. And I remember then that there wasn't any kind of the joys you enjoy nowadays of going to a friend's birthday party. There wasn't anything like that.
No sleepovers.
Sleepover wasn't even in the picture at all. I think sleepover was even unheard of. But even just going out to friend's birthday party or even just hanging out with friends, it was tightly monitored. But I look back and I say, actually, that helped because it avoided any of the any of the entanglement, the wrong entanglements that perhaps so easy to find yourself in.
Were you never upset about that, or you just flowed along with whatever they said? Maybe because of your Nigerian upbringing.
Yeah. So again, so I always look back and think, actually, why didn't we kick back a bit more, my older sister and I? And you're absolutely right. It's a reflection of the kind of upbringing we had, and our extended relative, whether my grandmother, my uncles and aunties, who had kind of shaped us in the right way. And also, I think it's also the approach my mom and dad had itself. And I would probably say my older sister and I were more kind of reserved than kind of your average typical young person is, where, and we were willing to kind of work constructively with things from that perspective. But we look back now, we thought, we should have asked for more itself. But look, the biggest challenge I had was actually in school.
Tell me about school.
School wasn't easy for a Nigerian boy coming with a kind of a raw accent in the 90s. It was tough.
Wow.
Very, very tough. And tough in a way where...
Were you bullied?
Oh, yes, that's the least of it. It was tough in a way whereby you pretty learn quickly that the kind of... the institutions of authorities which you can rely on in Nigeria. So I grew up, as I said, I compare. In Nigeria, something goes wrong. You tell the teacher. Yeah. The teacher steps in. They enforce their authority. You feel like, or you tell the senior boy, you tell somebody, someone steps in. It doesn't always work well, but there is that structure there. And I remember one of the early times, literally probably a matter of weeks or months that I'd got it to school in itself. And I remember it was an history class itself. I remember I was sat in the middle of the class. The teachers... In the 90s, some of the classes were a war zone. I literally feel sorry for some of the teachers that taught in inner London area, not just Southwark, but inner London secondary school in the 90s, because they had it tough with discipline. And I remember one of those, it wasn't the only episode, there was lots of other ones, but the first one that shaped my mind was somebody squashing a paper and chucking it at so the teacher was writing on the board and chucking it at the teacher, and it hit the teacher's back of the head. And the teacher looked around and said, "Who did it?" And look, fresh off coming from the plane, not fresh off the boat.
You bitch.
It was an old man. You get credit for the want of a better snitching, for saying it in Nigeria. You become the teacher's darling. For actually, I raised the speed at which I raised my hand was like anything. I raised it pretty quickly, and I was happy, proud to tell the teacher who he was. I'm pointing as well, how you pointed itself. But I learned a big hard lesson there.
What happened?
The lesson was that if you're gonna make friends, you need to understand the culture of the environment itself. So literally from that day on, I was labeled a grass in itself. And I tell you this, that was something that was that kind of in still small circles of students still stick with me till year 11. You can imagine year 8 right to year 11 that there were still certain things that they felt that they couldn't still trust me with. But you know something, I repaired some of those by, and I say one of the things that helped me get through secondary school was sport. So I was then known as a mean defender. So I will take the player and the ball down together anyhow. But because I was so kind of proficient in my kind of mean defending, and during playing ground, when you pick teams, I ended up being one of the first to be picked, because they know that if they pick a defender and their defense is sorted out, then they just need to worry about who scored the goal, so that they were always quick. And because they value, and I always say things like sport, art and stuff, it has no kind of respect for racism or anything like that.
They just,
talent. people. And that's why you see kind of ethnic minority excelling in those space, because actually people look away from that. They just want to win. So they choose the best that
regardless
helps them.
of color.
Hello, man. That was what got me through year 8. That was the only thing that got me through year 8. And you know something? One of the worst mistakes I also did was to report early to my parents. And you can imagine parent march to school. I'm going to speak to this teacher. And you know, Abiod, the teacher, you speak to the teacher. Who does the teacher speak to again? The student. And where does it come back to again? You in itself. So that I quickly found out that, actually, that approach didn't really yield much of a result. And as therefore, as my parents were feeling that they were trying to resolve the matter, it really didn't resolve the matter. And I remember being spat at a lot of the time. It got really bad several times itself. But look, I say this, actually majority of those who took in it, by the time we were in year 11, we were very good friends.
Wow.
We were very good
So you didn't change school? You were not tempted to leave the school?
No. We stuck it out. We were very good friends, and we took part in sport. And as I said, they wanted me in their team, and I wanted to play with them itself. And it shows in life that sometimes you have to find a common ground.
Yes.
And when you find a common ground, people set aside their ignorance itself. And for me, it's ignorance, because actually they're perfectly good people, and they are a joy to kind of play with, to work with, and tell me this. And when you become friends, they come to you to help them out with their maths and the areas in which you can help out with. So I got through that and thought, crikey, if this is the world of work life, that we all have a battle itself ahead. And then I decided at the end of year 11, what do I want to do in life? Where can I kind of, in an essence, shine? And where can I kind of make a difference? And for me, I always say to people that actually, I had a blessing. So I grew up in a political household. When I say I grew up in a political household,
we're going to get into that.
It was just my dad was the key thing. So I was very lucky. So my dad kind of, obviously, as I said, came to UK in 80, I think it's about 84 or so. The generations of Nigerians that came in then, they wanted to study and go back itself. But as things started developing really from good to bad to worse in Nigeria, they reflected and reassessed their priorities. But what my dad recognized very quickly is that if you leave home and you go somewhere, and that somewhere is starting to become a longer stay, you go to an hotel, you say you want to spend one night there, and something happens, and it becomes 1 week, and it becomes 2 weeks. Are you still going to be using the same place? You will get your own TV, you get your own microwave there. You will start to make the area home, more homely for you and settle. And my dad always say that is essentially what politics is like.
Wow.
Itself. You will try to shape the home to be better for you. So this is your new home. And you need to make it better. You can't just sit there and expecting somebody else to make it better for you, because it's no longer temporary itself. So I grew up around that, and he got involved through the 90s when it was difficult for Nigerians to get involved in any party.
Anything.
Labour was better, but there were issues, and there are still issues in terms of engagement with minority groups and the experience of minority groups in politics itself. And it was tough. It was tougher for them. Their generation had it very tough. It was in your face kind of prejudice, in your face racism.
Your
itself,
dad must have been a very bold and courageous man. I think I knew of him very late. So especially towards the end of his life, then it's like, wow, for the first, because you said he was the first.
Yeah, so he was the first Nigerian mayor of Southwark, but he was one of the first waves of kind of African mayors across UK itself, and it's that kind of feeling that that actually we've got to be part of the solution. There's no point standing on the sideline and complaining. You've got to roll up your sleeve and say, how can I be part of the solution? And in doing so, you not only create solutions for yourself, you create solutions for those around you and for the wider community as a whole. And you ensure that decisions that are made actually reflects the experience of everyone, of all sections of our community.
But not everybody feels like that.
Yes,
unfortunately.
Of course. Well, it's still the case, and that's where the challenge is on me, our generations, to make sure that we just don't sit and enjoy the benefit of my dad's generation and the generations before him and the battles in which there are new battles we have before us now. Racism is no longer in your face. It's very subtle.
Very subtle.
It's very, very difficult to point at. It's when you know it's there, but you can't point to it. Yeah. It's when you can't give the example, but you know a decision has been made with it in mind. And it's when you know that actually you could be so much further than where you are, but actually there isn't even a step-by-step about how you do it itself.
I want to take you back a bit because you was talking about your dad, and that's wonderful. But you as a family, what motivates? So is everybody in politics now, or what motivated you? How many of you are actually engaged in that, and what pushed you into that? Was it because dad did it, or was it something you wanted to do?
So two things for me, and I will tell you about the experiences of my other siblings. So there were two things that kind of motivated me. One, as I've said, is growing up around dad, and whether it's your dad, your church pastor, your uncle, your auntie, or just your news agent, shop owner, have role models. If somebody sets the kind of bar for you and challenges you and encourages you on, and you see the part in which they're walking, and you think, actually, this sounds like the kind of path I want to walk, then it makes the journey along the way easier itself. So for me, I had the benefit of that, and it helped me quite a lot. I was able to ask questions itself. But I would say one of the also things which is tagged onto that before I say the second thing that helped me was because of also kind of the Nigerian kind of culture and discipline. So I remember when I was kind of 14, 15. So my dad will sit. So I got him. It got me to go along, and because of my Nigerian upbringing, you've got along with your dad something. Yeah. But it was even more than that. I remember a couple of Labour Party meetings. So we'll sit at the meetings, and my dad will say. My dad will be discussing on who is going to take responsibility for dropping this leaflet or not. My dad will take leaflet. He wouldn't say anything about what I need to do or not. He would take all this leaflet. We'll get home. He will say, there you go, Coyote, and it's Coyote, which is my middle name and my Nigerian name, which is what I'm known at home. He say, Coyote, yeah, it's time to drop the leaflet. So I would do a good chunk of it in itself and everything else. And I would think, he's the one collecting the things, and he's the one collecting and he would do it again. And he would say, I'll take it. Don't worry, I'll do it. And I think, you're not doing it. I'm doing most of it itself. And you know something? And when I asked him, he said, don't worry, I'm doing it for you. I said, how can you be doing it for me? But actually, you only realize later on that, yes, he's doing it for me. Because sometimes when you know what is good for someone, but the person can't appreciate it.
They can't even see it.
You can't see it. But actually, if you get them to do it, they will realize it later on. So my story is of somebody that do the kind of parental duty, in essence, of helping out at the early stage with things, and actually then grew an interest in it. And the second point which grew my interest in politics is, so when we arrived, Mom and Dad were looking for schools. It was tough. There were very few schools. So during the 90s, so the school I went to, the secondary school I went to, it was literally 15% 5A to 6. 15% of kids were getting 5A to 6 itself. And it was one of the worst performing schools. There were a lot of secondary schools which were at the bottom quartile across the whole country itself. But there was dotted school. There was like one or two schools which were very good. When I say very good, they weren't 80%, but they were getting 56% 5A to 6. But that was then very good itself. And And when mom and dad eventually got us into school, so they did a bit of preparation work, but the only school they could get us to is obviously low and below, the least performing one, because that's where there was space itself, and they tried their best. And I will remember year after year, right up until year 9, you see the stats in itself, and you see that your school is only achieving 15A to say itself. So that's the official measurement. I'll tell you the unofficial measurement that I pick up as well. The official measurement, your school is there. And then you will take the bus to go past the school. So my school was then called Archbishop Michael Ramsey in Camberwell. And then the school will take bus 36 from Peckham, will go along the way, and you see some kids getting off to Sacred Heart. And then you see Sacred Heart result every time, 56% of kids. And you know what that means? 1 in 2 kids, even before they apply, they're likely to get 5A to 6. And because of where you are, by the sheer average thing, actually, if you find yourself unlucky and you are in the school further down the line, you are literally 15%.
Wow.
That is 1.5 out of 10 kids will get that itself. And that was stuck to me because I was saying then, well, I want to be in that school, but it's difficult to get because obviously schools were not performing then. But it wasn't even in that on that measure. I remember my year 11, the most important year. English language, one of I would say perhaps the most key, because how you express yourself is absolutely important, cuts across all subjects itself. We did not have one single permanent teacher. It was supply teachers upon supply teachers upon supply teachers.
Still happens now.
I hope it doesn't to the extent of your literally final year where it was redoed. And you know something with supply teachers, kids take the mickey. They take the chance itself. A supply teacher would ask, where were you last week? You will pull the supply teacher back to kind of 7 months ago, to the easy things that you know very well for them to start itself. Wow. That's even if you listen to them itself. And in any regard, supply teachers are the teachers where you exactly frustrate the hell out of itself back in those times. So that it was very disruptive education. It got my eye very wide open at the early start, that nobody will give you anything. You've got to shape the surroundings.
You've got to get it yourself. You've got to go for it.
You know where we are now? Southwark as one of the best educational schools. We've got 5 outstanding secondary schools. All our secondary schools are good. Our secondary school stack is one of the top 10, top 20 across the whole of London, competing with private schools itself. So now, when I was in Southwark in education, you wanted to go to Lewisham and Lambeth to go to school. I remember I couldn't wait to get out of my secondary school to go to then Craster King in Lewisham to go to my secondary school. Most kids in Southwark then, you will want to go to, you got Abadasha in New Cross. You'd want to go to Christ the King in Lewisham, or you want to go to SFX in Wasenham. The best performing sixth form then was Bacon's College. And that was the only one. And even then, you will still want to go to Christ the King or SFX, those that know the picture in itself. Wow. And most of sort of kids, the best of them were dispersed out itself, because actually, frankly, education failed our kids then. But now, people want to come into Southwark. People are busting into Southwark. And I say that with so much pride, because I'm not saying it's all down to my will, to my power, but I would say, I say it as a testament of good leadership over a period of time, of putting resources in the right place, of working collaboratively together. It's not just the local authority. It's leading from the schools, the ed teachers, is ensuring that there's resources support in a collaborative way. And we can now be sure, we're looking at secondary school for my little one. We're looking at mainly Southwark schools.
Fantastic. You know, we've been talking a lot about politics, which is fantastic. But that wasn't what you really studied, because you're a lawyer by profession.
Yes, that's correct.
And before we came online, I know you had work to do still on on such a day as this. So
yes, I was just coming from police station earlier on today.
You were interested in politics, but you still went to do law. Was that something you wanted to do, or was that just...
Yeah. So very early on, I probably felt that I didn't want to be just a career politician itself. It's always useful to have a different experience to bring into politics. Politics is richer when there are different perspectives into it itself. So I don't think I consciously thought about it, but one of the things I felt was very powerful. So if you come into any environment, I always say the first rule you need to understand is the rules governing that environment. You need to know how to utilize it to your benefit. You need to know how to interpret it. Every rules, in my view, is arbitrary. You can interpret it one way or the other. The reason why we have so many court cases and the reason why we have so many appeals and wrong decisions is because rules are not kind of finite itself and changes and open to interpretation. And so that for me, the important tool of being a lawyer is not as such the work itself. It's recognizing that actually you've got a powerful tool. You understand the principles of understanding what governs your environment itself. You search for it and you try to utilize it to the best of your advantage.
Wow.
So that I would be one of the people that we will be discussing amongst friends, and I would say, yeah, I can understand why you do that, but you need to be careful, because this may actually straddle you against the other side. You know how many countless young people within the Nigerian community and African community who have thrown away their life because they have inadvertently encroached on the rules? Do you know how many people who have got literally criminal conviction just for using a mobile phone before it actually become well known? Do you know how many people who unnecessarily take risk of driving with no insurance? How many people take risk that is due to ignorance itself? And because they are not fully kind of aware of the importance of knowing. And one thing I say is ignorance is not a defense in any aspect at all. And I always say, actually, the first step, even more important than politics in itself, I say the interrelation is when I came here straight away, it's by default, the things I was looking at. So I came into this room, I was looking at where is the cloakroom? Where should I where is this? Where's the seat? Where is this? What are the rules? Is there anything on the wall I need to check or anything like that? Because it allows me to operate as speedily, as effectively, as efficiently in this environment by knowing the rules.
Wow.
And then when you know the rules, the next question is, why is the rules like that? And that's where politics come in.
Wow. This is a good learning thing for me as like listening to you. And we can go on and on. Now, you've made politics sound so much, which is one of the things that we wanted to ask. So what advice do you have? Because we hear the phrases, politics is dirty. There's no point in going there because of, just like you said, the racism is there, the challenges are there. Do you still think it's worth doing, especially for the generation? What words do you have to say, or what advice can you actually give to the viewers out there?
Very, very well. So a couple of things I would say is, so all our discussion so far is actually why politics is useful. I've explained that actually for yourself, you should not allow somebody to kind of dictate how you live your life without you having an influence with it. So that is absolutely important. More externally, a society works best where decisions are made with a balance of how they would affect all constituent parts of the society itself. Now, if you're not there, and people that experience things the way you are not there, how would people on the decision table know? And sometimes people say, well, and this is sometimes the argument against representation, but don't worry, I will be able to represent your views. I'll find out what your views are and represent your views. I say this, the person who is injured is the only one that knows the extent of the pain itself. So that I say sometimes, so I remember, so when my residents raise issues with me, and in an essence, particularly issues about eating in itself. So they raise it, say a resident raised an issue at 2 a.m. in the morning. I'm tired. I'm sleeping. I got family at home itself. John, I got all this. And I try to respond, but sometimes I don't.
You can't.
You know something, if my boiler breaks down at 2 a.m., nobody will tell me. Nobody will tell me what to do. I'll jump up, I'll stand up, I'll call whoever, I will fix it right there because I experience the pain. The pain is actually still on itself. So that I would say to people that the importance of getting involved in politics is because it's the most direct way to shape your life, to shape all aspects of your life, to shape all aspects of your community. Look, decision making isn't easy itself. Nobody takes account of your views unless you sometimes make them to take account of your views. So that by virtue of that is you will have to make people feel uncomfortable.
Wow.
And when you make people feel uncomfortable, sometimes they come and bite you back itself. And so that I say to people, look, you're not going to jump into a club and expect everybody to make you the chairman of the club overnight. It will take a while. You'd have to make your case. You'd have to show, and you have to challenge them
and
that you're worth a seat.
And you've got to be resilient. You've got to
be persevere. All those.
Wow.
And the problem is sometimes we give up too easily. We forget that politics is the same thing as work, as in church, as in everywhere else, where you have to prove yourself. It's just more heightened in a political environment.
Wow.
itself.
This is your passion in terms of this. Is I've not seen it like that in a long time, and I really want to appreciate the way you've opened up to share with us. And I think viewers out there will actually appreciate what we've been listening to today. We've been listening to Echoes of Our Community. We've been speaking to Councillor Michael Situ. There's so much that has been said, and there's so much that could have been said, but we're going to have to stop for now. But I want to say thank you so much. Just one word, just one last word just for our viewers, for encouragement, especially in the days that we're living in, the politics of the cost of living, the things that are going on out there. I don't want to mention names, but in terms of especially with the extreme right and all that. Yeah, just one word to encourage people. Please.
So I would say the first thing is that everybody is special in their own way. Your view matters. What you have to contribute matters. So do not let anybody say that to you. The second thing is persevere. Nothing is achieved overnight. You may have to try again. And the last thing is, don't just think about yourself. Think about everything you do as a community. Involve others, bring others along, because actually the burden of the journey is lighter when you do it together.
Wow. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, viewers. This is Echoes of Our Community. My name is Margaret Taribo, your host. Please share, like, and subscribe. This is a place where and if you have any questions, please share on our channel, and we'll get back to you. Michael Situ is here to respond as much as you can if you have any questions for him. So thank you, and I'll see you next time on Echoes of Our Community. God bless.
Thank you.
Through voices strong, stories told, connections formed, we find our place, echoes of our